Shavua Tov, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm amazed how many boys are here learning on a Motzei Shabbos. So that's very, very special. Obviously, I want to thank Chazaq. I want to thank, what's your name again? Mishael. I wasn't sure if it's Michael, but that's why it's Mishael for arranging all of this. This is really beautiful. Mishael, and I just think it's very beautiful that people come together, especially with what's going on in the world. And the true light that takes away darkness is obviously Torah. That's the emes. Torah is Ar. Torah is Machzira Lamotav. Torah really, really casts a beautiful, beautiful light in a dark world, or in a seemingly dark world. So we're going to get to two parts today. We're going to have 5-7 minutes of tefillah, and then we'll shut the camera, and we'll have, if you want any questions regarding Kiruv. So I've been actually doing Kiruv for close to 33 years, but that's Kiruv that I've done for outside. There's always Kiruv that a person does for himself also. So there's many, many different types of Kiruv. There's a Kiruv that a person does, for others, and there's internal Kiruv. And you do need to build, in certain ways, a internal foundation of Kiruv to have the ability to give it over to others. But we'll get to the Kiruv part secondly. So I want to discuss today the power of tefillah. And we know in this week's Parsha, now many Parshas talk about tefillah, but we know in this week's Parsha is probably used exclusively by many people to teach the power of tefillah. Why? Because we know in this week's Parsha's told us the story of Yitzchak and Rivka, and that they didn't have kids for 20 years, and they had no children. And the pasuk, begins. The parsha begins with the Eil told us Yitzchak ben Avrohom, and then it goes a little bit into the lineage of Yitzchak and Rivka. One pasuk of that. Then it discusses how Yitzchak and Rivka davened to have children, and it says that Yitzchak stayed in one corner and Rivka stayed in another corner, and they davened. So I want to tell you what the koach HaTefillah is, the koach of tefillah. Now there will not be any questions, and please do not make any noise, because I want to concentrate on the shir, and I want everybody to be able to enjoy. So Rashi says that one stayed in one corner, and another one stayed in another corner, and I made a little bit of a chiddush that we see from here that men and women should not be davening together in a way. Because even though Yitzchak and Rivka were married, but Yitzchak went to one corner and Rivka went to another. So you see a little bit, tefillah should not be together. Men and women should, unless they're obviously at a Shabbos table and they're saying Tehillim together, but in general we see a concept that there should be a separation between a husband and a wife. So it says that one stayed in one corner, one stayed in another corner. So the question is really regarding our avos, that why did Avrohom, Sarah not have children? Why did Yitzchak and Rivka not have children? Why did Yaakov and Rachel not have children? Why did Hashem cause that the holiest of our people, the holiest avos, the holy avos that we have, we're not zochah to have children, right? So normally I would think that obviously Hashem, Rashi says, loves the tefilos of our avos. He loves the tefilos of tzaddikim, and he likes to hear the tefilos. In reality, Hashem doesn't need to particularly hear the tefilos. In reality, Hashem says he loves the tefilos of tzaddikim, because when tzaddikim daven to Hashem, every time they daven for something, they get closer and closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So in reality, the answer of tefillah is not the answer that you want. The real answer of tefillah is that you get dveikus b'Hashem, that you get close to Hashem. So therefore, every tefillah is answered. Because if every tefillah brings you closer, then every tefillah is answered. Every tefillah is answered. So Hashem wanted to hear the tefillos of tzaddikim, not for his sake, because Hashem doesn't need really, in reality, our tefillos. He wants what's best for us, and because he wants what's best for us, the more we daven, the closer we get. Now I don't want to say the more reward we get, and that's not the reason why we should be doing something, but it brings us to what we need to be doing in this world. So in reality, like I said, every tefillah is answered, and every tefillah brings a person closer, and the avos developed a closeness to Hashem more and more because they kept davening and not giving up. So the fact that they also didn't give up is a great lesson also, because a person should learn from the avos, Ma'aseh Avisim Labanim, that when you cry out to Hashem, you should not ever give up, and you continue and continue. And whether you get what you think you need, you're getting answered. You're getting answered. Very important to know that. I want to discuss two concepts, two stories of tefillah that I saw. I know both of these stories for close to, 25 years, but I think it's apropos to bring down these two stories. Story number one goes back to the Holocaust days when the Holocaust was, when the concentration camps were liberated by the American army. And there was a very big tzaddik and a big gadol by the name of Rabbi Silver. Rabbi Silver was from Europe, and then he was from Cincinnati, and a very, very big tzaddik. And when the war ended, he was one of the many rabbis that went to concentration camps to visit the inmates, the survivors, to give them chizuk. He was one of those people that went in the concentration camps to give chizuk. And he actually put on American Army uniforms. He put on the American Army uniform. Mike Tress went with him. Many, many delegates went to give chizuk to survivors. What they've been through was no way to explain it. So he's walking in Birkenau, and he's walking with maybe it was Buchenwald, I don't remember, one of the two. And he's walking into one of these concentration camps after the war, and a lot of inmates came, with him. They went over to him for chizuk. They were following him around. They were talking to him. They were pouring out their hearts to him. And one inmate that saw this group passing one inmate decided to go to Rabbi Silver. And he tells them, Rabbi, I want you to know that what I saw in the Holocaust, because of what I saw, I will never be a religious Jew again. I don't want to have anything to do with Judaism. I'm cutting myself off from it. That's what I decided. So everyone, including Rabbi Silver, thought that obviously what he saw, the trauma that he's been through, is the reason why. Because it's not easy, it's not partial. I'm not here to judge people. There were many Jews that went off after the Holocaust. Many Jews stayed unbelievably close to Hashem, which in itself is a remarkable thing. But Nebuch, many Jews were too traumatized. They couldn't handle what they saw and what they've been through. So he said, I will never be a religious Jew again. I don't want to have anything to do with Judaism. So Rabbi Silver said, I know what you went through, and I know you suffered, and I'm never going to be able to understand you, but I want you to know we're here for you. So the inmate said, Rabbi, it's not what you think. It's not because of what the Nazis did, but it's because of what he saw from one Jew, that because of that, I don't want to ever have anything to do with Judaism. So the rabbis and the inmates that were with him obviously wanted to hear more. So he says, what happened? So this inmate began to say a story. He said, you should know, when I came to this concentration camp 6 months ago, that's when he came. He said, I came with a certain Jew, and this Jew was able to sneak into his side of his clothing. He was able to sneak a little piece of a siddur, one page of a siddur. And he said, and this siddur, many of the inmates in our lager, in our bunk, wanted to pray from this siddur. They wanted to get chizuk, they wanted to get close to Hashem, and they wanted from this siddur a little chizuk. And he goes on to say that 42 out of the 48 inmates that were in this lager wanted to use the siddur. They wanted to use this piece of a siddur. But this inmate that had it said he's not giving it to anyone unless they give him their ration of bread of that day. The little piece of a little crumbs that they got for the day, in order to use that siddur, he wants their crumbs. So now, I'm not here to judge, but when you're starving to death and you lose all sanity because of your suffering and what you've been through, I understand personally why a guy would do that. He's starving to death. He's not rational. Yes, he wants his ration of bread. But for some reason, this inmate said didn't understand that, and he felt it was a terrible thing that what this other inmate with the siddur did. So Rabbi Silver asked that inmate, how many Jews gave their ration of bread for that piece of siddur? So he said 42 out of 48 gave their bread that day, whatever days it was, to use that one siddur, that one little page of a siddur to daven to Hashem. So Rabbi Silver said to this inmate, why look at the one individual? Why look at the one individual that asked for their rations of bread? Look at the 42 inmates that were willing to give up their last pieces of bread through starvation to daven to Hashem. Don't look at the glass half empty, but look at the glass half full. Be part of a nation of Jewish people. Be part of Jewish people. Be part of a religion that 42 inmates that were starving were willing to give up their few crumbs of bread after everything they've been through to daven to Hashem. You see what it means to be a Yid. You see what it means to give up for a Yid, and you see for Yiddishkeit, and you see what it means tefillah. What tefillah can do, even a little few crumbs of bread when you're starving cannot accomplish to fulfill the neshama of a person. That's one story. Story number two is with Reb Chaim Kanievsky. I'm a very big chassid, like everybody is, of Reb Chaim Kanievsky. I used to go, till a few years ago, I would go every year to get a bracha. I'm a Rabbi, I do kiruv, I'm busy, I have a family, Baruch Hashem, and I usually used to try to make it my duty to go once a year for 3-4 days just to get a bracha of Hatzlacha. I would try to arrange it during Bein Hazmanim, so it won't affect my teaching, obviously, but that's something that I tried to make a yearly visit to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. So there's a story about a couple in Bnei Brak that their 8-year-old son was having terrible migraines, and day after day the headaches, they didn't get worse, but they kept coming back. And finally, they decided that's not regular, and they went to a bunch of doctors, and the doctors that they went to said, you need to do major testing, because it's not normal that he should have this amount of migraines in such a short period of time. Check him out. Just check him out, see what's going on. So they did some testing, they had CAT scans, they did whatever they needed to do. The last day, or the last test that they were going to do, a doctor walks in and calls the parents out of the room, it was in a hospital, and calls them out of the room and says, I want to tell you that your son, Nebuch, your son has a brain tumor. And as an 8-year-old boy, it's very traumatic. It's traumatic for anyone. But this 8-year-old boy is going to need to understand what he's going to be going through to prepare him as much as you can prepare an 8-year-old boy. And it's a very dangerous procedure. It's located in a very difficult place, and it's going to be a serious surgery. And he's going to need chemo, he's going to need radiation because it's very huge. So they got the whole information. They walk back into the room and they start talking to their son, 8-year-old boy, and they start explaining to him about the nausea, about the radiation, and how he's going to be sick, but Hashem is going to help. And they were discussing it with him. And they told him his hair is going to fall out. And as you know, Nebuch, when you see someone with cancer, it's not just that the hair falls out. It's noticeable how they're yellowish color and how their skin is like very, very like red. It's just, you could tell that they've been through something. And his hair's going to fall out too. And he's going to have to, he's going to be sick. Then they get one of the doctors walks in and says, can we just talk with you more? Because we want to discuss with you what you should be doing for the next few days. They walk out and they look through the window and they're looking at their son. And they see their son went to the window by the hospital in their room and he's talking. So they opened up the door a little bit to hear what he was saying. They overhear their son saying these words, talking to Hashem. And he says, Hashem, I heard what I have. My parents explained to me. They told me about the radiation and the chemo and the treatments and the nausea and the hair loss. But I ask you for one favor, Hashem. I'm ready to accept all of it, an 8-year-old boy. I'm ready to accept all of this. But I ask you for one favor, Hashem. Please let my payers remain. He had long payers. Let my payers remain. I'm willing to lose my hair. I'm willing to be sick. I'm willing to go through terrible suffering. But I ask you, please let my payers remain. This person went to Reb Chaim, this couple went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky with their son 6 months later, and they told Reb Chaim Kanievsky the story. And then they turned to their son and said, Rosh Hashiva, Gadol, whatever they called him, they said, this is our son, and look, a miracle happened for him. He lost all his hair, his eyebrows, everything, yet his payas still remained. Long and thick still remained. And Reb Chaim Kanievsky was so inspired and so inspired that he actually called his Rebbitzin in, and then he asked the Rebbitzin, could she call some of his sons that were living nearby, and he asked the family, can they stay for an extra few minutes, 10, 15 minutes, which they did. And he had all the children that were nearby. He brought them and some einiklach, and he says, I want you to see this boy, because you could see from this story what the koach hatfilah can do. That a person, normal things should not take place, but b'derech hateva he should have lost his payas. But the koach hatfilah is so powerful that it stopped payas from falling out. And Reb Chaim gave this child a bracha. Reb Chaim gave this child a bracha that you will not only survive, but you will live many, many years. And as the story goes, I don't know how many more years later, because the story was many years ago, but in the Sefer, the two Sfarim I saw the story in, brought down that Reb Chaim actually was the sandik by a bris of this boy's marriage, from a child of this boy. He got married and even had one child, and Reb Chaim was the sandik. So you see with the koach hatfilah. So I just want to tell you, tefillah is a very, very powerful thing. And during this difficult time, seemingly difficult time, tefillah can do tremendous things, not just for the people in Eretz Yisrael, not just for the soldiers, but even for yourself. It gives you energy, it gives you koach, it gives you strength in difficult times, and most importantly, it gives you what you need to continue battling for what we need to battle. So I wish you all a wonderful week, a week of bracha, a week of powerful tefillah, a week of closeness to Hashem, but never give up and start to build your koach hatfilah. Start to build what you need for the power of tefillah. So with this, we will end this part of the program regarding tefillah and the power of tefillah. So I wish you all a good week.